Welcome to the Texas Talks podcast. I'm your host, Brad Swale. Today, I'm joined with Mark Teixeira, former Major League Baseball player, three-time All-Star, World Series champion, five-time Golden Glove Award winner, and three-time Silver Slugger Award. Mark, how are you?
I'm doing great, Brad. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to talk to you. It's a real pleasure. And, when I started doing podcasts, I don't know that I ever thought that I would be talking with a Major League Baseball player of your caliber, and so it's kind of cool to be able to do that. And thank you for taking the time. Yeah. So I guess for those that don't know, there's got to be some people out there. Give us a little bit of background about who you are.
Yeah, so I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland. Middle class kid that played all kinds of sports: basketball, soccer, baseball, tennis in the summer, and I did realize at a young age that I had a gift to hit a baseball. It's as simple as that. And so as I got older, I stopped playing soccer after my sophomore year of high school, stopped playing basketball after my junior year. Senior year of high school, I focused on baseball, and I'd say it worked out for me. I've been extremely blessed in my career, and went on to Georgia Tech, played 3 years at Georgia Tech, and then 14 years in the big leagues. And now I'm just a dad. I'm a has been. I like to joke around like, yeah, I used to play baseball. People ask me what I do. It's like, yeah, I'm kind of a washed up athlete, but yeah, I had a great run in the big leagues and had a lot of fun doing it.
You might be, I don't think this, but you said it, so I'll say it too. You might be a washed up athlete. Again, I don't think that, but you might be that, but you're a dad now, and that's got to be, that has its own unique challenges, right?
Absolutely. It's not having control. And I think when you're an athlete, there's you put in the work, you play a game. At the end of the game, there's a scoreboard. Like you have your stat sheet, there's a scoreboard, where you stand.
Yeah.
A lot of times being a dad, it's like, all right, how am I doing? Come on, kids, give me some feedback. It's a little bit more difficult to check the scoreboard, if you will.
Oh my God. I'm a father of three, and that's a great way to think about it. My oldest is only 9 years old, and I can't, I don't know. I think I'm doing a good job. People say that, but then I have my own self-doubts, and I guess I don't think I'll ever know, to be honest. I don't, even when they're, older and doing their own thing, will I know? I don't know. I'll always question it.
Hopefully this is where I want to get to. I can look at my dad now. My dad's still living, and I can look at him and say, you were an awesome dad.
Yeah.
And I hope at some point, whether my kids are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, whatever, they can say that about me. They're not going to say it right now. And they're teenagers. They don't want to give me that much credit, but
Sure.
Hopefully someday we'll know when they get older.
Yeah, for sure. So you played a lot of sports as a child, and I've kind of always wondered this. I did multi sports when I was a kid. I don't know. I had dreams of being professional at some point, but my parents, they convinced me, why don't you just go to college? Just go to college. If you go for 1 year and you still want to do that, fine, whatever. We'll support you. And luckily I went to college. So, was there something unique about baseball? Was there something unique within you? Do you think, you've been around a lot of professional athletes, I'm sure beyond just baseball. Is there that unique, I don't know, maybe you even see
it's
that
a gift.
you see that spark
Yes.
maybe in some of the kids that your kids are around, right?
There's no doubt. So there's a few things that you have to have or be to become a professional athlete. And I've been around some of the best. I've gotten to spend time with the greatest athletes in the world, not just baseball players, but basketball or football or what have you. And it starts with a God-given gift.
Yep.
Like you have to have the talent. A kid who's 5'2", who can't jump, and can't shoot, isn't playing in the NBA because God didn't give them that gift to have the athletic ability to go play in the NBA. But if you have that gift, shows up pretty early. Like you throw kids out on the field when they're young, and you're like, ooh, that kid's different. He looks different. He's faster. He's stronger. He moves around the field different. So like that's number one, is that God-given talent. And I knew that at a young age. Number two, you have to love the game enough to want to practice it.
Yeah.
Like if you don't, you might have a gift at a young age, but if you don't love the game and you don't want to go out and keep doing it every single day or for a huge portion of the year, you're not going to get good enough to advance your skills. So I think that's the second thing. And then once you're at a level where everyone is kind of the same, like when I got to the minor leagues, I looked around. Heck, even in college, big time Division I college baseball at Georgia Tech. I looked at everyone on my team like these guys are all studs. They are.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be here if there is that mental dedication, perfectionist, being able to handle failure. I think the mental game kicks in at that last level, whether it's college or the minor leagues for me. And then once you get to the big leagues, it's a lot of survival. it's dealing with failure. It's being able to play 162 games. It's fine tuning your training, all that kind of stuff. But I just, again, it all starts with that God given ability, because without it, none of the other stuff matters.
Yeah. I want to ask you. So, I mean, I'm a fan of different professional sports at different levels and different times in my lives. Different times in my life, I've been, a fan of one thing or another. And I've always kind of wondered, baseball, whether it's baseball or any other sport, the player is an asset to the team, right? Not only in how many, points they can put up, but also how many jerseys they sell. They're the owner of the team. They have this asset, and it's a player, right? And you have a job to do, and you go out there and you do it. And I always wondered, like in the background during training, I mean, how much do they? What's the line? How much do they pamper? How much do they push? How much do they, say, what we gotta let him rest today. He didn't want to
Yeah.
practice, whatever. What do is that clear?
The easy answer, yeah, it's a great question. The easy answer is whatever you're doing that is successful is accepted. Does
Okay,
that make sense?
I think so.
So if you're somebody that shows up late to practice, is causing problems on the team, but then you go out and you perform and you're the best player on the team,
Yeah.
they may not like it, but they're going to accept it. When that trouble player, when that problem child stops performing, then ownership or management has an issue with it and then steps in. And I think the opposite is true. They might think the world of you. Hey, you're a great person. If you're not performing, you're out.
Yeah.
And if you're not performing, I'm going to try to change what you're doing. Your training is wrong. You're hanging out with the wrong people. You shouldn't be doing this, whatever it might be. So it is. We are an asset. We are not. Everyone talks about family. The last family I was a part of on a baseball team was in college. I mean, I really do, because you're all 18 to 22 years old. You're in the same. You're going to class together. You're living together. No one's married. No one has kids. That did feel like a family. Once you get to professional baseball, professional sports, it is dog eat dog.
Sure.
And your teammates, especially when you're young and you're vying for your position, whether it's to become a starter, to make a team, to make a lineup, to keep a lineup spot, your teammates are hoping that you fail.
Yeah.
Because they want to get to, if it's basketball, they want to get into the starting five.
Sure.
If it's football, they want to become the starting running back. And so your family gets thrown out way too much in professional sports, because we are assets. We are numbers on the back of a baseball card or on a stat sheet. And, it doesn't matter how management or an owner personally feels about you. They might love you. They might think you're great. As soon as you stop performing, you're out.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, I was going to ask you. So you started out your professional career on the Texas Rangers, then you moved to Atlanta Braves. From there, the Los Angeles Angels, and then finally you ended at. And I think your longest stint was at New York, was with the New York Yankees. Yep. And I think that I've always sort of wondered this, and that with professional teams, people get traded around, they move around, and of course, there's that's normal. I think that's the way. That's just the way it is, and that's fine. What is it like going from, the Rangers to the Braves, or the Braves to the Angels to New York Yankees? You do hear that so much. Hey, it's a family. You're part of the family. You're part of the team. And then, well, actually, we're going to send you over here, and it's a trade and it's business. I get it. I don't think it's personal, but reintegrating yourself into that new, I don't know, organization.
you have to treat it as a business. I'll give you a quick story that allowed me to see baseball as a business at a young age. So I was 18 years old. I'm a senior in high school. I'm one of the top prospects in the draft. I was supposed to be a top 10 or 15 pick in the first round of the draft that year. I had a very strong agent, in Scott Boras, and he said, "Hey, this is what you're worth. Don't hold out. Teams are going to start calling. Hold out, and I think this is what you're going to end up getting in the first round." Well, teams started calling the day before the draft. Hey, will you take this? Take this. I kept saying no. I said no to the wrong team, and this team told everybody that I wasn't going to sign, that I was just going to go to college, and so I went from being a top 10 or 15 pick in the draft to going in the ninth round.
Jeez.
And it was that team it was the Boston Red Sox. It was that team that drafted me.
Yeah.
And I learned right away that this is a business. They do not care. They're gonna try to, they're gonna try to get their player for the least amount of money as possible. And so I took that thought process into my entire career, and I was very dedicated to my craft. I worked my tail off, and when it came down to business decisions, hey, will you take this contract, or we're going to trade you? Nope, not going to take the contract. You can trade me. So when the Texas Rangers traded me, and then when the Braves traded me, I didn't take it personal at all. It was all business.
Yeah.
And so I can look at those guys. I still see those guys now that traded me. I can look them in the eye and shake their hand, and hope that it was a good trade for both parties.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I think it worked out pretty well for you. I think you ended up moving on.
Absolutely
to
did.
Do
Absolutely.
great things. So after your baseball career, you moved on to ESPN. Was it Sports Center? Is that right?
So Baseball Tonight, Sports Center.
Yeah.
I did a couple of the other, when Mike Greenberg's show Get Up launched, I worked on Get Up a few times, First Take. So, I lived in Greenwich, Connecticut, and so the Bristol studios, the flagship ESPN studios were an hour and 10 minutes away. The Manhattan studios for ESPN were an hour away, so it was really easy for me to go back and forth to different studios and do my time. And I got to do Sunday Night Baseball. I got to do the All-Star Game, the playoffs. And I joked, after the first year, if I'd have known that I could, go to the All-Star Game and World Series every year, I'd have retired a lot earlier and worked for ESPN because it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed my time with ESPN.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like a natural, I don't know, you're not the first athlete to do something like that. It seems like a natural transition to go from playing professional sports to commenting on professional sports. I have a cousin that was the captain of the women's water polo team for the U.S. Olympics, I think in the, I don't know, late 90s, early 2000s. And she went on to do commentary for that sport later on. And that makes sense, right? But that's every 4 years. You can't really make a career out of that. Is that, I mean, it seems like a natural fit, but is that something that, I don't know, you're getting towards the end of your career, Sports Center, ESPN, they start reaching out to you, say, hey, if you retire, this is what we could use you. I mean, how much is that, or are you
That's
thinking?
exactly how it happens. That's
No way.
exactly how it happens. The day that I announced my retirement, it was like middle of August, season's over at the end of September, early October. Middle of August, I announced my retirement, said, this is my last 6 weeks of playing ball. That afternoon, I got a call from ESPN and said, hey, and I had done some stuff on Mike and Mike, or I think I'd done some playoff coverage in the past, and so they had my contacts, and so said, hey, you want to work for us and do Baseball Tonight, do our baseball coverage? We'd love to have you.
Yeah.
So so it was funny. I was retired. I wasn't even retired yet, and I already had a job for the next year.
Yeah.
So that was pretty neat.
Was that what you were thinking as you sort of you knew before anybody else that you were going to be close to retirement. Is that what you were sort of thinking? Like, that's my next step, or was that sort of a surprise of, you weren't expecting ESPN to call? It wasn't a total out of left field, but
I wasn't totally surprised. I think you hit it on the head. It's a logical soft landing.
Sure.
For an ex-athlete. Now, the thing is, there's not a million of those jobs. There's only a handful of those jobs. So I think my time in New York, being in front of the cameras a lot, helped. doing talk shows. I got to be on David Letterman, and I did some cameos. I did a cameo on Entourage. I did a cameo on Billions. So I had been I had experience being in front of the camera outside of the field, and I think they saw that. So like that was my audition, and it put me ahead of the class as because those jobs tend to turn over a lot in
Yeah.
baseball. Not as much in football and basketball. Like you kind of see the same guys every year. But in baseball, for some reason, they turn over a lot. Probably because we don't get paid as much as those football guys. But yeah, but it was an easy transition for me. I didn't have to learn the league. I've been playing against these guys forever with these guys, so I could easily start talking about them and talking about managers and organizations, and I really understood it. So it was a fun couple of years for me.
Yeah. I wonder if there's more turnover on the baseball side of that because is it a bigger commitment just how many games there are per year?
That's part of it.
Yeah. And NFL has what, 14 games? Something like
Yeah,
that?
and the NFL and NBA, you can go to a studio, and there's one big night. The TNT might have one big night, or CBS has their Sunday show.
Yeah.
They're not really doing anything else. For baseball, there's a lot going on, and I just think that it's a much more local game, whereas as the NFL and the NBA is a more national game.
Yeah. So I mean, in your career with baseball and at ESPN, are you doing anything right now? Like, what is I mean, you just hanging
I'm
out,
doing I'm
having a good
doing a
time?
ton, and I'm doing nothing.
That's great.
The
That's
reason
the best.
I'm on four different boards. I have a real estate fund in Atlanta. I have lots of different investments that I'm kind of keeping my eye on and
Sure.
allocating capital. But at the same time, I don't have a full time job. So
Yeah.
if I want to totally unplug for 2 weeks, not talk to anybody, not press accept on that Zoom meeting or whatever, I can do that.
Yeah.
And I can make my own schedule. When I'm here in Austin, I feel like I'm kind of on vacation. When I go to Atlanta, I'm working. If I'm going to board meetings, I'm working. But there's a lot of times where I wake up in the morning, I got nothing on the calendar. My kids go to school. I go to the golf course, go to the lake. I'm on vacation, and
Yeah.
it's a good feeling because I grinded for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, I was gonna say I was gonna ask, you're living the dream, right? But then it's always important to remind people of this. I think you grinded for a long time. It's really easy to look at someone. I don't know if you look at social media, somebody that I don't know they're really strong, they're ripped or whatever, and they're doing workout videos, and you look at it, you're like, man, I wish I could look like that. They make it look so easy, and what you don't see is the years and years and years and years of just grueling, pushing
Yep.
through the discipline, the motivation, and the hard work that goes into it. So you are
Well,
living the
and
dream, but you earned it.
absolutely, and I kind of made a deal with myself. I missed a lot of my kids. My kids are 17, 16, 13. I missed a lot of their younger years
Yeah.
because I was playing. Even when I was home, I was focusing on the game, or I was exhausted. Even in the off season, you're working out and you're catching up on all the things that you can't do during the season. So I was still traveling a lot and seeing family and friends, whatever. But I made a deal that I wasn't going to do anything full time once I retired. And so ESPN was about 60 days a year. Um, I went back and finished my degree at Georgia Tech. That was another cool thing that I got to do. I got to finish my degree.
I saw
So
that.
because I
That is
left
cool.
after my junior year at Georgia Tech, and so I went back and finished my degree. And so the last probably year and a half, the first time I haven't had like a job, like something to actually go do, or been in school.
Yeah.
And I found myself, I've got way more time for my family now. And as long as my kids are here in the house, I'm not going to go into anything full time just because I feel like I owe that to them, that I can be present.
Yeah. So you spent, but you always had a very successful baseball career. ESPN, now you dabble in different things here and there now. I get the impression that you could probably live anywhere in the world, and you've probably traveled all over the world. A lot of people say, man, if I had the the ability, I'd go live in Fiji or whatever, right? Um, and you could probably say that, but you chose to live in Austin, in Texas. I was born and raised in Austin. I think it's kind of cool. I still live here, right? So I like it enough. Why did you choose to live in Austin?
So I moved to Dallas right after college, right? So I got drafted by the Texas Rangers in 2001. I moved to Dallas right after I got drafted or after I signed because I wanted to work with Rudy Jaramillo, the hitting coach for the Rangers. He was there in the off seasons. And so between 2001 and 2009, I was in Dallas, playing for the Rangers. And then even when I got traded to the Braves and the Angels, I came back to Dallas in the off season, and I loved it. I mean, listen, my nickname's Tex. Like the Texas lifestyle to me, being able to be outdoors, hunting, fishing, your weather's pretty good all year round.
Yeah.
You have the opportunity to be whoever you want to be, and that's so I love Dallas, but I would always come down to my wife and I would always come down to Austin, just visit. I had a really good friend that lives here, went to UT, still lives here, and we found ourselves going to Austin. It's like you go to Lake Travis and you look around the hill country, you're like, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
Then you go downtown and you've got UT and the Capitol, and you've got some really cool burgeoning tech companies that are the Dells of the world are popping up and expanding. To me, I like being a part of a lot of different things. Like on a Monday, I might go hunting. On a Tuesday, I might play golf. On a Wednesday, I might be in board meetings all day. On a Thursday, I might meet somebody that works for UT and wants to take me to a basketball game, whatever. There's just so much to do. And so when I looked at my future and I looked at my kids' future, there's not a cooler place to be than Austin, Texas. There's not a more dynamic place to be than Austin, Texas. And I wanted to give that to my family.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's saying something coming from you just because playing baseball, you visited so many cities so many times, and it's not like other sports. You go there and you play one day and then you're gone. You're there for several days playing many games. Um, and you go back. I mean, you must have spent a significant amount of time in all of the where all these stadiums are located every single
Yep.
year, and probably got
Yep.
to know and see how these places changed over time.
No doubt. So I'll give you a great example. One of my favorite places to go visit when I was a player was Seattle.
Yeah,
2003 was my rookie year. First time I went to Seattle. Beautiful city. The people were nice. The weather in the summer is perfect. Early in the season, April, May, you get rainy. It gets a little bit cold towards the end of the season, but just perfect in the summertime. You get the lake or the sound and the beautiful pine trees everywhere. You're flying in, you see Mount Rainier, and then I saw the evolution of crime, of homelessness, of just the city kind of falling apart. And it's just one example of most cities in our country. And I hate to say it, like it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart to visit San Francisco and to visit Baltimore. And I spent a lot of time in Atlanta. There's a lot of parts of Atlanta that aren't pretty anymore.
yeah,
That aren't as pretty as they should be. Right. And New York City. I mean, my wife and I loved going to when we lived in Greenwich, we were, an hour from Midtown Manhattan. We would love going into the city. Over the past 5, 6 years, it's a different place. It's a little bit of a scary place. And now I'm not saying Austin doesn't have its challenges. That being said, uh, there's not a city that gives you the best of all worlds, right? Like LA's got incredible weather. What's another city? I love Chicago in the summertime. The rest the winters are brutal in Chicago, right?
yeah,
So everywhere that I went, and my wife visited me on almost every, over 15 years, 14 years in the big leagues and another year in the minors. She visited me in almost every city in the country. And whether it was 3 or 4 days or just a night, she'd maybe pop in. And there aren't many cities that you go to and you experience the city and you drive to the airport and you get to feel what it would be like living there. There's not a lot of places that we were both all in.
yeah,
And when I mentioned to my wife in 2019, hey, I think we should move to Austin. We were all in. There
Yeah,
was, I mean, we're just so happy here because we have been able to see the rest of the country, and we love this country. We love. There's a little bit about every city that we love.
sure.
We love most parts about Austin.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that you're enjoying it. I like it too. I know I wasn't real. I didn't put a lot of pep in how I said it. I do. I love Austin. I was born and raised here, many generations. It's not so bad. So I want to ask you sort of what your next steps might be. Outside of the different investments and all the little things that you're dabbling in. You know, I've seen you get involved a little bit in the Texas legislature or issues that the Texas legislature are bringing up, whether it be on Twitter or in other arenas. Talking about the school choice, talking about teacher pay raises, stuff like that. I think it's interesting that someone, if you're with your experience and your background to get involved with something like that. I think it's really cool. So I'm curious why are you interested in that? Why is that important to Mark Teixeira?
So for me, I recognize that I've been blessed. God has given me so many physical gifts and worldly gifts that at a certain point in your life, it's not about more. It's about giving back, and it's about service. It's about creating positive impacts in your community and the lives of others. And so I've always been very involved in charities. One of the most impactful charities I got involved with was a group of charter schools in New York, in Harlem, New York, Bronx, New York, some of the toughest parts of the city. And I saw what quality education does for poor families. And I saw what guys like me that could help raise money, that could help influence legislation. Again, it's a little bit at a time, but when you have the support of quote unquote celebrities, I don't consider myself a celebrity, but I do understand that maybe people will take my call or might listen if I have to say something. To me, that is a platform that I currently have. I'm still relevant enough that if there's something here in Texas that I feel strongly about, quality education, eradicating poverty, things that are big issues, quality of life. I mean, quality of life for everybody. Not only the citizens of Austin, but the homeless,
Yeah.
right, and everything in between, and the police officers that have to deal with some of those issues. I just feel like there's a place for me right now when I have time, when I'm on fire for the city. I love the city. I love the state. I love that Texas is making stands against certain things in politics, and I want to lend a hand any way that I can. And so we'll see where that takes me. But I'm open. I've told friends, I've told lobbyists or representatives or people that work in the governor's office, hey, I want to serve. And if there's a way that I can be helpful because of who I am, whether it's through baseball channels or what have you, I'm here to help. And it's been fun. I haven't done a ton of it, but I think I'm going to be doing more and more in the future, and looking forward to hopefully being a positive impact in the community.
Yeah, sure. And so, on the charter schools in New York, seeing how that helped poor families sort of improve or at least the kids and certainly the families too, as a secondary consequence, but improve their station in life. Getting that education that they really deserve. Um, and the school choice movement here in Texas saying that, well, that's what they want. That's what we want to do here as well. We want to give those the poor families a choice. Um, what? Why is that? Just from your experience, why is that important in Texas? What do you hope to see in Texas with that happening? Is that something you're going to focus on in 2025? Is that, what do you hope to get out of it? Not you personally, but what do you hope to
Listen,
achieve?
I think at the most basic level, if there are kids that are going to schools that are failing them,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we've seen some of the numbers, right? And it's almost always inner city kids, right? Um, if there is an opportunity, if there is some way for us to create legislation that provides better opportunities for those kids to help break the cycle of poverty, that's where we need to be headed. And I think the charter school movement in Texas has been strong, but there's a lot more that we need to do,
Yeah.
because I just think there's no other business. If you think about the business model of government, and public schools in inner cities are a great example, no other business, for-profit business, would be allowed to be run the way that our public education is in some cities.
Yeah.
And that is just so. I mean, I grew up in Baltimore. Baltimore has some of the worst public schools in the country. And so why are we allowing that to happen? And somebody has to say something. And if I can be a voice that might get amplified just because people will follow me on Twitter, then great. And I think there's a lot of movements that start in Texas, or the Texas supercharges. And I think the movement to end failing schools needs to happen. I mean, why do we have failing schools? There is no excuse. And we could probably do a whole nother podcast just on that, on why they're allowed to keep operating the way they are. But it breaks my heart to see a poor kid who doesn't have another choice, does not have another option, and they're going to failing schools that are not going to better their lives, not going to give them an opportunity to get out of poverty.
Yeah. I think that's the way you put it, very noble. I can appreciate, where you're coming from on that. And I look forward to seeing, how you get involved in the future, in the next legislature, with everything else going on. I think it's really cool that you do stuff like that. Mark Teixeira, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me. I know that you could be taking the day off if you wanted to, but you're here, you could be playing golf, right? But you're here talking to me. So I really appreciate that. Is there a website, social media stuff that you want to plug? We can put all of the links down in the description, of course, but
I'm not extremely active on social media. I have a Twitter handle, Teixeira Mark 25, but I don't post a ton. Social media is a little toxic right now, if you haven't noticed, Brad. So
I've noticed that. I don't know if that's new, but yeah.
I've stayed away mostly in the past couple of years, but I really appreciate you having me on, and this was a great conversation, and you'd love to come back another time.
Awesome. I appreciate it. I look forward to doing it. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad.